Mr. Weber, please report to Zone A, Sector 9. Calling Mr. Weber, please report to Zone A, Sector 9. Fusion biomedics report to Rehabilitation Center, Level
4,000. When approaching pad 6. Caution. threshold.
Do you like our owl?
It's artificial?
Of course it is.
Must be expensive.
Very. I'm Rachel.
Deckard.
It seems you feel our work is not a benefit to the public.
Replicants are like any other machine. They're either a benefit or a hazard. If they're a benefit, it's not my problem.
May I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
Have you ever retired a human by mistake?
No.
But in your position, that is a risk.
Is this to be an empathy test? Capillary dilation of the so-called blush response? Fluctuation of the pupil? Involuntary dilation of the iris?
We call it void comp, for sure.
Mr. Deckard, Dr. Eldon Tyrrell.
Demonstrate it. I want to see it work.
Where's the subject?
I want to see it work on a person. I want to see a negative before I provide him with a positive.
What's that gonna prove?
Indulge me.
On you?
Try her.
Su Malidan Baji Medicine Silication Ola Musa. Ay makçunum dule bu malaygam tele burmun tendi meydan nur şedil ayvel raydam çalbarım do.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Dasein. Welcome to this episode of the Right Wing Reading Club. We'll be looking at the third part of the Bronze Age mindset. Big shout out, big ups to my man, Tiger Joseph, the beautiful co host of this wonderful program, for starting us off with some perfectly articulated Mongolian throat singing. As always, we'll just be going around doing introductions. Say probably your name and your @ Of course, everything's anonymous here, so don't say your real name because that would be counterproductive. So, of course, my name is Dasein. My @ is Dose of Percocets on Twitter. Tiger?
Hello, I am Tiger Joseph. I am a Southern California filmmaker and videographer and guy, and my @ is @TYGR Productions, and I'm happy to be here.
And Outsell.
I am at Orthbull on Twitter, and I'm just the local Zoomer. Here to stop by.
Yeah, Outsell is actually in high school, so that's a front-lining young man right there. The very cutting edge of degeneracy. So today we're looking at the third part of BAP book, which is part 3, Men of Power and the Ascent of Youth. So I read it initially, and I just wrote down some quotes for the rest of the show. But we'll just go around and talk about, when you read this, what was your first takeaway, whatever, how you felt about it when you first read it, what you liked, what you didn't like, etc., like that. So for me, I really liked how he had a shit ton of literary examples of so when I'm talking about the individual or masculinity, I'm going to tell you exactly which specific individuals I think can embody this to the perfect level. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Tiger?
Well, the thing I really liked is that if you didn't think BAP was smart in the first 3, you definitely think he's smart in this last one, because he basically shows that he's not part of what was known as the alt-right with the whole Richard Spencer thing. He basically shows that that's not the path to actual change. That's the path to getting a bit of media attention and then looking like a doofus the rest of your life. The real path is by bettering yourself and by, maybe this isn't the right word, but subversion and dissidence, kind of starting with the underground and then moving up and influencing children, more or less, not through outright political intercourse and demonstration, but just by teaching them, the way of man, the way of truth, the way of strength, all that stuff.
For sure. Orthable?
It reminded me of conversations I had a lot with people talking about the alt-right and why it's just such a disgusting entity, because I feel like a lot of what happens is there's a lot of projection. You have a lot of these really weird people in the alt-right who are just not put together well, and I feel like they use race and they use that as their identity, kind of how you see transsexuals and gays using sexuality as their entire identity. When you do that with race, there's a lot of problems that come about with that, and I don't know, it just reminded me of that for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. There's this idea of
I'm get into that a lot.
Yeah, there's I'm going to use oh, I like to put my penis inside of other men, and that's the entirety of my identity right now. And BAP really isn't anti-homo. He's anti this just idiotic, myopic, the entire part of your identity is only being homo or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think that's the same that you pointed out, where it's if you look at a Richard Spencer type person, it's I'm white, period. And that's the that's the whole discussion.
It's the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't care if your race has a higher IQ. If you just jacked off into an anime pillow for the 3rd time in the day, you're doing nothing with your life.
Basically.
Dabbed on.
One sentence destroys the entire alt-right, never to recover again.
I really, though, the entire alt-right thing was very strange to me because normally you have to rely on the mainstream media to like create a straw man of far-right politics, but like this time the far-right just did it themselves. Like
Yeah.
they pulled up and were like, "Hey, here's a beautiful straw man for you to attack and call us idiots." It just happened.
Yeah, everyone says Richard Spencer's a Fed. I don't know if that's true. I believe it, kind of. Like, I could definitely see that, but I honestly think he's just regarded. Like,
I actually think he's just an idiot.
yeah.
Assume idiocy before any type of malice. All right, let's jump into the reading real quick. So it starts with section 49. I didn't really have any cool quotes out of 49 or any highlights. Did you have anything that stuck out to you there, Earthbull?
Not for me on this one.
All right, cool.
next-
Yeah, yeah, go ahead for the next chunk.
Right now for 50.
Yeah, sure.
50 was the Mitt Romney one, huh? I don't know. Like I didn't have much on this one.
What's
I'm
the
gonna- I'll
What's
pull
the
up
summary of
what I
that?
have.
So
the summary?
basically, I'll just read the first chunk because it basically summarizes it. Imagine a Mitt Romney, but different. A Romney who actually was capable of acting like he looks and was worthy of his looks. Imagine a younger Romney who rouses the nation to a new war against India through power of charisma and speech alone. Then he leave on ship to head the armies conquering India. Stuff like that. And then of course there's like this rumor that Mitt and his friends are trying to overthrow the government, and then he stands trial, but instead of returning, he just goes to Russia. There's like this huge story about basically this is copy pasted essentially from an older like a Greek individual Alcibiades. I fucked that up for sure. But he literally just copy pasted this narrative on top of Mitt Romney. And for me, the passage does two things. One, it's just so incredibly weird to imagine Mitt Romney's dad genes like heading a fleet of invasion to India and then like going on all these ridiculous adventures. But it's also reminding you that now our leaders are these Mitt Romney kind of like extremely old Mormons that just have a bunch of kids and wear dad jeans and have virtually no personality. And that's so different and so separate than the leaders of the Greeks, who basically all they did was like, I'm just gonna be really fucking cool my whole life and do a bunch of really cool shit and then die. So yeah.
Trump, I think he's a new trendsetter for bringing back the philosopher king to American politics. We lost it after the first few generations of presidents, but he's bringing it back. He's making it.
Who was the last president, philosopher king, archetype icon? Roosevelt? Teddy? Not FDR.
Yeah,
Not
I'd say
wheelchair.
Teddy. I'd say Teddy. FDR was, he had a grand visionary, but it was more so on the policy side of things. I think that Teddy was, he had the youthful energy. He's even mentioned in this section, actually. He's at the very end. It's where he goes out into the Amazon when he's 60 and just dies. He doesn't want to be a bitch. And he's just like, how am I going to die? I'm going to go to the Amazon and conquer a bunch of cool shit and then die.
That's how you do it.
That's really how you do it. I mean, for sure.
That's how you fucking do it, definitely.
I skimmed 51 and I didn't actually understand any of it. I'm gonna be super frank.
Let's delve into it. Let's see if we can find some meanings.
So he starts by talking about rigor mortis. And it's kind of like, okay. No, really. Like I read this a couple times and I didn't quite get it. I mean, he has a couple sentences that are good, but I didn't understand like the entire passage, if that makes sense, like what it was meant to mean.
So that's stiffening of the joints at death, right?
What?
Rigor mortis is when you die, your joints stiffen up.
Yeah, like flesh stiffens up, and I think he's making an analogy to society out of that. Because at like the bottom of the next page, the way our own elite today marries and pairs off, by the way, is anything but eugenic. Two over-the-hill spent people in their 30s marrying for practical reasons. This doesn't give rise to strong children. The bodies of middle-aged people nauseate me, and I assure you, they bring nausea to nature as well. And he talks about like Hippocleides, who just like, this is a great story too, like just generally. So he was supposed to go and like get this woman, right? Because there were a bunch of suitors that showed up, and Hippocleides just like got shit faced and just like danced on the table, and just like took off all his clothes and just like stood on his hands and turned up. And then the father was like, "You will never marry my daughter," and his answer was, "Hippocleides doesn't care."
That would be great, and the fact that you put it in third person is even better.
Exactly. He just looks to me, he's like, "Hippocleides doesn't give a hoot," and he just leaves. But again, like I think the goal of this section is again, we have this dichotomy that BAP always sets up where it's like between the old and the new, right? Where
Yes.
the old is Hippocleides doesn't care, and the new is over the hill spent people in their 30s marrying for practical reasons.
This is slightly of a side note, but it's very complimentary. Do you guys know who Jay Campbell is?
No.
Okay. He's on Twitter. He's TRT expert or something like that. Anyway, he's like super woke into like what's happening in American politics and whatnot. And he's also like 45 and like Hugh Jackman ripped, like super insanely healthy. And that's what I think that's middle-aged man. That's what they should be, right? You should be muscular, you should have your life together, all that stuff. But instead you look at them and you're like, you eat like a 6-year-old, you have no personality, you're balding, and you wear glasses. Like, good job. You failed.
To a certain extent, shout out to people who wear glasses. I don't, but you can't really help it sometimes.
Oh, I have shit eyes too, but I'm just saying it adds to the picture.
Yeah, it adds to the picture. I agree with you. And actually that does link, because at the very end he basically talks about like if you come from hard places, or if you aren't constantly in pursuit of like a more comfortable or like I don't know, like cushy life. Nietzsche says good things about poverty, independence, and being of good cheer. And all of these men, Diogenes and Hippocleides, were very poor men, but the sons of God need nothing more. So I think there's also this comment about if you're going to pursue your career to a very large extent, right? Like you're going to work 60-hour work weeks at your firm to try to make partner, and you just like gain 30 pounds of all fat on all this shit. Like, great, you have a larger apartment, but you as a man have lost something that makes you what you are, right? Like your personality and who you are as a man is really important.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
for people to be successful in modern society, you don't necessarily have to be a great man anymore. You don't have to be an accomplished person. You can compromise in so many parts of your lifestyle just to gain economically and I guess in terms of fame and popularity.
Yep.
It doesn't encourage like I don't know true virtue and greatness.
Absolutely. There's a lot that can be sacrificed to pursuit, and it's also weird because like the metric of success and social stability or social status is almost always purely economic too, right? So it's difficult to blame people for pursuing economic well-being when economic well-being is one of the very few things that can directly translate into social capital or social status.
Yeah.
Because you can't go and like kill a bunch of people with a spear anymore. It just doesn't go down like that.
Yeah, people won't like you if you do that. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, go to prison, which is nonsense. In 52,
Nonsense.
we get to talk about women, which I think is great.
Yeah, I've actually read Schopenhauer's On Women. And
Oh,
a constant BTFO. I read that before even this section. He goes into talking about in On Women. He says something along the lines of great artworks take longer and slower to produce to be more beautiful, and that's why the male's rationale complex is fully developed by the age of 28, but that of women's is fully developed around 18. So he's drawing that contrast as this explains their irrational and emotional nature compared to men. So there is that.
Well, I don't know the science, but women just are more emotional than men. Just
And the best way to test this, if you're talking to a girl, you can tell them, yeah, and I just believe that women tend to be more emotional and irrational than men. And the first thing they'll do is flip out at you, and then you just prove your own point.
basically.
There's a quote on 52. So he's talking about how Schopenhauer discusses the carelessness and joyful frivolity of women. But then there's this idea that women in the best case and in most specimens are botched. And how are they botched? They've been taught to hate their own natures and instincts. And in some cases, these instincts have been warped or butt hexed in all caps, butt hexed with 2 X's into something else. They've been, as a wit, recently put it Bernankified up the ass. Modern women have given up this great advantage so they can become neurotic copies of gay desk workers.
Basically,
He talks about this in the other sections as well, where it's like the fact that women have more like are better, if you want to like put it in a really gay way, like they're more in touch with their emotions, right? Like their reactions are emotional. BAP doesn't see that as a purely bad thing. It's the ability to like glimpse into the future or like see things that men would not be able to.
I don't. Yeah, wouldn't argue that women's nature is inherently bad. I just think there are differences, and it's better to know them. And that talks about how, how he's saying that they're botched now. That's because the more we progress in terms of how society views gender roles and the rights that we gave to women, it's not men and women becoming more equal, it's women becoming more equal to men. So they're participating in men's games such as business and sports and having a career, rather than what nature has been, which is them for being taking care of the house and kids. So I feel like that creates a lot of problems, is when you divert from what we've done for thousands of years and then they're now trying to play a man's game.
It's also difficult. Like I agree with you both that they won't be as good at playing the man's game, but there's a secondary problem of the man's game will change because there are women in it.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
The rules
already
get
has.
weirder. It already has, right? Like
Do
things.
you guys
get
remember that
weirder.
Vice interview with Jordan Peterson and that chubby Asian guy? When
Like
he's
got like
in-
cut really selectively.
Yeah. They got
Oh.
super deceitfully cut, and then he's like, why do women wear makeup in the workplace? The guy's like, to look good, and then he's like, well, why? And he's like, I don't know, look pretty, and like they don't know, like they don't question why women are in the workplace. It's only been 40 to 50 years. This is a new thing, and we don't know the consequences, and we should be very, very careful. That we accept that we don't know what's going to happen. We should be careful in allowing this huge social change to just happen.
It's a massive social change, and Peterson talks about this a lot as well. And I think a lot of right wing Twitter people talk about it a lot. Is like you have this birth control pill, and the game just fucking changes so quickly. Like you can just have sex, and it doesn't matter like at all.
Yeah.
Like it's just this thing that you can do, and it doesn't matter at all, and it could very likely just not lead to any children or any consequences whatsoever.
And
And
if
I
birth
think
control didn't change the game, then murdering babies did. So there's that.
There's the double backup game there, right?
See, I think it's less the being able to have sex and not have children, and more the hormonal effects that it affects women, and then how all the xenoestrogens get in our water supply. If it was just the sex part, I think the consequences would be much less than how that. I think it's fundamentally changing the chemistry in both men and women is the pill.
Okay, also fucking Men's Health or whatever article was like, oh, semen, we just noticed that men's sperm count is fucking plummeting and it's not recovering at all. And it's gone down 75% in like 50 years. Don't know, that's so crazy. And like it just gets ignored. Like it's like no one gives a fuck about it. Like, dude, how are you gonna make kids?
Yeah, testosterone's declining in men. The average guy's like, oh, okay. I just want to drink my beer and watch the game. I don't care about my tea. And that's the other thing, is that they don't highlight the importance of why declining sperm and testosterone rates is a huge deal.
Yeah, they just say it's declining,
bigger than just
and
numbers.
they're like, that's a problem, and then there's no like reasoning behind it.
We'll connect this to this is not even in this part. It's earlier in the book, but he talks about, when he's talking about evolution, it sounds like he's pointing out that there's flaws in this empirical idolatry, where you can do all these studies that you want, but if you don't go further into explanation of it, or like the metaphysical aspects of, say, evolution or declining testosterone rates, it becomes a problem. Because he used a quote from, I think he said, the Catalog of Monkeys. He quoted Schopenhauer from that, and that's a bigger quote from On the Will and Nature, where he said, they prefer calmly to toss out of the window the intellectual labor of 2,000 years and treat the public to a philosophy concocted out of their own rich mental resources on the basis of the catechism on the one hand, and on that of the crucibles and retorts or the catalog of monkeys on the other. So, I mean, without extra understanding to an empirical study, then things just get overlooked and you don't see the true importance of it.
Yeah, unless you slap the language of science on top of a claim, it has no validity, right?
Basically.
Also, at the very end of 52, right before 53, there's this great quote. Please remember that small people like Bill Gates, hold up my fucking laptop, just turn the page, just kidding, one sec.
What the fuck?
Now I'm
off
just
the
laughing with the
group.
boys, man. Please remember that these small people, Bill Gates, Zuckerface, and Bezos, are entirely dependent men. They can't really do with their wealth what you think they can. For example, they could never just kill a man and take his wife. But even the ruler of the smallest African country has this power, this true wealth. When your happiness and wealth depends upon the force of arms of another, you're not really your own man, nor can you enjoy the great delights in life. So I also like that because we were like a while ago we were talking about how economic well-being is directly linked with social status, and it's like we have a really gay version of that. Like if you go to Africa, it's like that dude has a gun and he can shoot you, and this guy's like, I can sue you for all you're worth. Like it's just so dumb. And he also has a little bit of collapse language later in this chapter that's like the end is coming or whatever, and like Western civilization will collapse. There's gonna be like an apocalypse or whatever. And you would much rather be the small African warlord than Zuckerberg or Bezos at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about the entire like black pillar collapse mindset is like many collapses are happening every day. Just when you look at how far things have gotten when we're talking about like women in the workplace or great men not necessarily existing because of doing fine on their own economically. I mean, these are like mini collapses in and of themselves. Just because people aren't running around with AKs looking for food doesn't mean that there's been a huge shift in society already.
I agree with you, and that's normally my thesis too. Is it's not like the collapse isn't going to be like suddenly the electrical grid goes out. The collapse is just a very slow and steady descent on a number of different variants.
Yeah, it's
Like
not going to be one day where everyone's like, society is over, and then that's it, Mad Max time. It's going to be like,
things
you know,
just get steadily worse.
yeah, and then eventually you're like, and then eventually people are like, huh, things are worse, but really nothing changes. Really, people don't go like, huh, we got to fix this. It's just kind of keeps sliding down.
Yep, very slow and steady slide. 53, The Pirate and the Fortress. This is great because he talks about like labor. Work was never pleasure for me, nor homekeeping thrift, which feeds good children. But to me, oared ships were pleasure, and war, and well-glinted spears and arrow. So this is the idea that like our version of leisure is like chilling out with the boys and watching the game, but like ancients' version of like leisure and like chilling out time was like, let's go train for war, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like war was the leisure, war was the enjoyment, war was that which is apart from work and labor.
Because life was feasting and then war.
Yep.
Those two things. Both extremes. We didn't have this weird like kind of kind of what do you call it? Apathetic work and then like apathetic play.
Yep. Also, he talks about predators a little bit, but there's a great quote about the worthless vaunting of anxious creatures who live on pharmaceuticals, cheap wine, and the rancid fart fumes of status and approval that they beg from one another. Just rancid
Nice.
fart fumes. That's good language. Also, he's really like this whole chunk talks about Schopenhauer a bunch, and he's talking about how Schopenhauer states that at some point in the past, all animals were herbivores, but then some species decided to take their own lives into their own jaws to risk themselves, and with great daring become a beast of prey living off of the hunt, and that the predator is always the more intelligent animal. And this links back to like you want to have physical ability and like force of arms yourself and not be reliant upon others.
Very true.
Stay strapped, folks.
You need to learn how to even just knowing a martial art and being like muscular. That alone. Like you just having that knowledge, you know, you're just a little bit more aware. You're a little bit more up to date with how you should be.
And that's kind of like when we were talking about Bill Gates, how these are, I think you said, dependent people, and they really are, because without that, they're just normal people. Like in the hypothetical collapse, they'd be one of the first people to go. They are nothing without their economic success, and without pursuing something greater, especially in a combat sense, or in improving yourself physically.
Except for Jeff Bezos, he's on TRT. He looks ripped as hell.
Jeff Bezos is on the juice.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Oh yeah.
Lost all his hair and he's completely ripped.
Yeah. Absolutely ruthless man.
God bless.
Well, okay. If it was a Zuckerberg theocracy, a Bezos theocracy, or a Gates theocracy, which one would you want to live in?
Bezos, because he's fucking ruthless.
Bezos?
Bezos would kill people.
Yeah, I would say I'd say him. But the Zuckerberg one, everyone would just be like fat and wearing VR goggles as he walks around and rubs his hands together. Yes, become part of the Matrix. We would be in Zuckerberg land, in Zuckland. We would voluntarily insert ourselves into the Matrix.
That's the globalist plan. Insert in the computer, plug in your mind. They want to take away your rights!
Zuckland. Madagascar. Zuckerberg's just gonna buy Madagascar and it's gonna turn into Zuckland 1.0. He's gonna cop it, you know.
Senator, come to my land.
He refuses to be brought into the Senate. The Senate has to come to him in Zuckland. But actually, that's funny because or even like in order to imagine Zuckerberg is legitimately powerful, we have to make him into a pseudo-African warlord, right?
Basically.
But the government couldn't even come for him though, because if he established his own government, he would provide embassy for himself. So he would just they wouldn't be able to get him from his own land. He'd be deep in the Congo.
See, I want Zuckerberg to get to lose all of his Facebook money and whatnot, and just become some weightlifting neat and just better his life that way.
We all want the best for you, Mr. Zuck. Divorce the Asian woman. I am not allowed.
Remember when people got mad? This is the last tangent. Remember when people got mad at Jack Dorsey for dating that 28-year-old girl?
Remember when people got mad at Drake for getting the coochie early? Drake gang, folks.
Not alive.
More life.
More life.
54, Greek friendship. This is a great section. Just that first chunk of the paragraph. Among your instincts, you will find the longing for strong friendships that the modern evil tries to snuff out. And they have good reason to try this because every great thing in the past was done through strong friendships between two men or brotherhoods of men. And this includes all great political things, all acts of political freedom and power. So this, I have a bunch of stuff to say about this, but what this made me think of was there was some article fucking 6 months ago. It's Frog and Toad are gay or some bullshit like this. It's no, Frog and Toad are just the lads. They're just two boys.
They're boys.
They're just two bros doing bro shit.
People don't understand when there was that one tweet about bro culture being toxic. People don't understand what it's like just when the guys get together. They don't understand locker room talk anymore.
Exactly. And it's also people legitimately cannot conceive of a platonic male friendship. That category has been eliminated slowly and steadily. It's not a thing anymore. They're fucking shopping Bert and Ernie, and literally fucking they're Bert and Ernie did it in the butt. It's no, they're fucking puppets. A, B, it's a children's show. C, not everything is purely sexual.
These people are sexually perverse, though. They have to make everything about it because that's what their entire ideology is based upon.
There's a lens of analysis outside of just busting a fat nut. It exists.
That is the most low. It's the most low level base level 1 instinct around, and they're let's put everything through that lens. And it's like as humans, we're supposed to transcend that, get to like the 5th, 6th, 7th levels of consciousness, right? They're on like the oral biosurvival circuit. You've read Robert Anton Wilson, right?
Yep.
Just that one level forward towards the teat, away from the predator. Just that. And they stop at around 3 or 4, which is the sexual circuit. But we need to transcend to 5, 6, 7, 8. We need to find out what the fuck is going on in this whole universe. And if they're gonna keep talking about Bert and Ernie butt raping each other, then they gotta get out of here.
You gotta go back.
We have to go back. What was that from?
I don't remember.
Have to go back.
Most content
Trump?
is just sort of like it's in some strange part of my head that is devoid of any context.
Oh, you know what? That's Trump going, they have to go back.
He was talking about the Mexicans.
Okay, and we just like slightly, our unconscious mind changed it to the context that we're using. That's crazy.
Yeah, further evidence Trump's a philosopher king, I suppose.
Exactly. Loop around.
Notice here when he said they have to go back. Now that is just absolutely profound.
Who are they? Where is back? What is go?
Why do they have to?
It's
Hold on, I'm gonna go back to the text for there's this idea that like only male friendship can have like if someone else insults you, then your bro will gather 50 bravos for a raid on the enemy. Not only because of the immense power of the evil that suffocates, but also because you have no such friends who could or would help you. Will you never experience this? So like he's saying that like there's an immense evil, or there's like the current miasma of modernity, if you want to be really like wordy about it, prevents the forming of close in-person male friendships. And they also fear close male friendships because like they don't want 50
They're powerful.
just getting like the gat and like going and shooting someone up. They fear your power.
They fear your power, young one.
Orthel, did you have any other sections from 54 that you liked? Because that was the only one that
Actually,
I really dug.
I had one on 53 before we had moved on there.
Oh, let's hit it then. Let's hit
It was just a short thing when it says they're not even nihilists. They lack all conviction and nihilism too. And you could draw this to if you want to label Nietzsche as a nihilist, but he was in the sense that he didn't believe in the traditional good and evil of Christian morality, and that morality is more transcendent than that, and you have to create your own meaning out of life. But now with modern day nihilists, you have all these like bugmen running around saying God is dead and thinking that just because they quoted Nietzsche that they have it figured out, but really they just use that as a way to actually live a life with no meaning rather than inserting one themselves.
What's the problem when you're 100 IQ and you try to understand a 190 IQ writer?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Implying these people are even 100. I mean,
The Nietzschean thing is like, sure, like there's an absence of values, but that absence of values is only beautiful because you can insert your own self-created value system. Like
Yeah.
you can't just have the destruction of that which is known without the will to power. Like that's how you get to be weighing like 250 pounds and you can't deadlift a single plate and you're just like chugging IPAs. Like that's what happens. You're like, oh, there's no value anywhere. But like I'm just gonna forget about this will to power aspect where like I am a human being and my goal is to grow and to like have mastery of space and like
They use it to like have some sort of intellectual backing to their meaningless existence.
Yeah, like when I was in high school. Oh, sorry. You continue.
I was gonna say when you like smoke pot and watch Rick and Morty all day, yeah, life is pretty meaningless, but you chose that.
Yeah. Like I was saying, when I was in high school, like my thinking on all religion was like, if I can't see God, then he doesn't exist. And I was like, as deep as my religious thought went.
Empirical idolatry that I was talking about, when you focus too much on like the 100% like in my hands facts and proofs, I feel like becomes a problem.
And that's, to me, that's a bit egotistical. Looking back, like that was super egotistical of me. No humility right there. Just being like,
yeah, right. Like I, as a single individual, haven't seen any proof, so that means it doesn't exist. Like, what the fuck? I haven't seen South America, but I'm like taking it on faith that it's there.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist. We can get into the debate about that, but
Well, we talked about this last show. The BAP theory that like airline pilots are part of a secret cult and they fly around in the air and there's only 7 to 8 cities that actually exist and they just reframe them whenever you go.
my uncle's an airline pilot. I should ask him.
He won't tell you, dude. He's sworn to secrecy. Anyway, before the quote that you said, he says, "Violent spurgs and obsessives. Our diddlers are diddlers because they lack all intensity and all faith in themselves and what they do." And then he says that they're not even nihilists. They just lack intensity. They're pissed dry. Like they're just bleh. It's as if like, well, I suppose I might as well just like, not do anything and allow things to continue to collapse, because if there's no value system, there's no like opportunity for me to like assert my own individuality or subjectivity.
That is wrong.
Chill it. Like I'll just chill it back. Like that, and that second part of it is just so important. That's sort of like that's where you need to be having a little bit of gumption, if you feel me.
It's not the view, it's what you do, right? You can be a nihilist or you can be like a optimist, but at the end of the day, if you just sit on your ass and watch Rick and Morty and smoke weed, yeah, you suck. You're not a good person.
Yep. And also, absence of action is in itself an action. So, like, just saying that, oh, I didn't do anything, like that doesn't mean you're good.
Yeah,
You did nothing. That's what you did.
You chose to do nothing.
Yep. What other chunks do I have here? I don't have any other notes until 57. Earthbolt, do you have anything in 54?
No, 57's my next one too.
Okay,
when
cool.
it talks about mental disease.
I'll just skip up to 57. You hit it with what quote you want.
He says, "I see no reason why if there should." It's just the beginning part. "I see no reason why if there should be epidemics of all kinds of diseases, the same can't be true for what we call mental disease." And I know I'm definitely going to go off on something that he's not even hitting on here, but we're so afraid to call things mental diseases nowadays when someone possesses a, I guess, worldview or some sort of state of mind that is just so perverted from the norm. Because I don't know if you remember, it was some lead psychiatrist at John Hopkins, I believe. That could be completely wrong, but he came out and said that transsexuals are mentally ill because they believe that their brain is inside a body that it should not be in, and we're so hesitant to call things mental diseases. Same with, I guess you could talk about gunmen with that. When you talk about school shootings, these people have often been on a lot of medication that has driven them insane, because I think a majority of school shooters were on some sort of medication for a mental illness at the time. So there's just that on that section, but not much that draws to the rest of what he's saying.
I like the this is just cool. He basically says that like if there's a mania of sex, he says this like he says, "I say this in a sex positive way. I believe any child born of excesses is likely to be blessed, because here the genius of the species is allowed to make the choice without any interference." So like in BAP's world, like the two hottest people at the orgy will inevitably fuck, and the hottest person has the strongest semen, which will make the best child. Like that's BAP world, right? Where like there are two individuals that are able to just select their partner in like purity of moment, without this like gay calculation of, is it the right time for us to have a child? Like, do you have the money for the down payment for the house? How have we budgeted around the mortgage? Is it in the budget? Right? If you're just able to be like, let's go, it's baby making time. If that just happens, then you're going to have like a high likelihood of a wonderful child or something like that.
Further proof that money's gay.
Money is gay.
Money gay RT.
I can't say the N word on YouTube. There's a quote that uses this, so I can't say the quote. That's
Money
rough.
gay RT. Everyone RT that right now.
Whenever anyone says RT, I just think Russia television.
Yeah.
Which
Also,
arguably is more objective than CNN. Probably is.
There's no argument there. That's true. This is facts.
I remember looking up like a bunch of RT articles to get any idea of what was actually happening in Syria. Good times. Because America was just like, it's all good, bro. Everything's going good. It's nice. It's real good.
The anti-Ruski mindset in America is very upsetting. That's something I hate about I guess our majority mindset here is that Russia just always has to be hated in our country, and I hate that because I think right now where they're headed in politics and where we are in terms of the right is that they're we're both going towards populist right wing parties and rejecting traditional right wing governments, and people aren't seeing the contrast there. I think they could be a good ally of ours if we just let it happen.
Oh yeah, Trump.
We didn't plan if we didn't plan out the finances. Putin and Trump just got together at some big meeting, and the moment hit them right, we could become good allies. That's all I'm gonna say. Talking about creating great babies, we could create a great civilization if we didn't plan out the finances. We just let it happen.
Trump is a military plant, by the way, so the midterms are going to go well and everything will be good. But I'm just saying that. What?
My boy Cav is going on the court.
Oh yeah, that's happening. This is just a bunch of kabuki.
Bunch of nonsense. Anyway, so 59. What the hell's going on 59, North Pole? Do you know what I'm talking about? He's looking at a Greek statue and he says, "I can safely say that upon viewing such a statue by myself for 3 hours, someone let me in to look alone in a museum. I was able to ejaculate without touching myself. But I had no dirty or untoward thoughts the entire time. This experience made me wonder if it is possible to ejaculate without touching yourself. Is it possible also to will yourself to death just the same without doing anything? What the fuck?"
Yeah, I don't have much commentary on that. I think
Okay.
even on other sections, I think you get the bigger picture more than me. So on this one, I don't have much.
I mean, I guess you could will yourself to death if you like just don't eat and stand still and stare at a wall.
Well, like, isn't death by suffocation like not possible? Like, you can't just like hold your breath and be like, "I'm gonna die," you know?
You'd have to create some sort of way to, because I think if you suffocate yourself, you'd have to keep choking yourself after the point of suffocation to actually deprive your brain of so much oxygen that you die. So that's
Yeah.
why like nooses work, is because it suffocates you and some.
Gotcha. I think this whole idea. I mean, the introductory thing is a little weird, but it ends with the idea of a beautiful death, and he talks about Mishima, which I think is sort of the idea of this, right? Is that the idea of like Greek purity is that which has a beautiful conclusion. So it's a beautiful death at the right time is the only key to understanding a life. Its only hidden meaning. It's at the very end of 59, right before 60.
I think there's many ways to go about that though, not just like you know driving your chariot straight into the enemy and with a massive explosion. Like you can go out like surrounded by the rose petals falling with all your generations by your side on your bed and like peacefully go out. There's multiple ways for that beauty to be shown.
Yeah, well, because Mishima, I believe there's a good clip on it that's about 2 minutes long, where he just talks about how people don't die noble deaths anymore, nobles in modern society. Like, because when you think about it, I mean, let's be honest, in a hospital bed surrounded by our loved ones, you're probably dying a pretty gay way. You have to die a noble death to become a great man. We put too much importance on living a long life when living a short, exciting, noble life and dying a noble way should be a more virtuous life path. I was saying, if on that hike today, I heard there's bear spottings. I'd rather go out trying to fight a bear than like cancer or something.
Oh yeah, and
You
when
live too long.
I said that death thing, I didn't mean cancer. I meant like you're 80 years old. You really built an empire. You're super sick, and you've like raised children, grandchildren, all that. You've done a fuck ton in your
Yeah,
life,
yeah.
and you're just trying to go out and like because if you're 80 years old, you can't go out like super sick, I guess, unless you would just go to the Amazon, which I guess you could do. But let's put it this way: it's surrounded by all your generations, and then having like a peaceful death. That honestly is probably pretty good. Instead of
Yeah.
just like,
I
if you're
guess
like, if you're like 40 and you die and there's like nobody around, that's sad, but it's not that quote unquote cool.
if you lived, I guess it just matters how you spent your time when you're alive, because
Yeah,
there's so many people that they're 80 and what have they really contributed
yeah,
besides their kids? And even then, if they're boomers, they probably didn't teach their kids right. So
like I get the whole thing about dying young, but I also think that you need to have elders in society.
oh yeah,
You need to have old people that didn't go out and die when they were 40. You need to have guys that can train, the 70, 80-year-old guys that can train the 20 and 30-year-olds. Like,
oh of course. I'm just saying if you live if you live a great life in your 40 years, I'd take that any day over someone who did nothing in 80.
100% correct. Yes. I think it's a pretty boomer quote, but it's like rather be a lion for 30 years than a sheep for 80.
Says from the generation of sheep themselves.
Also, it talks about Conrad in this section. Like, there's a whole like page and a half. I don't have the physical version, so I don't know how long it is. But he's talking about like Conradin, which is like the young king who was conspired against by a number of like corrupt papist people. And there he's painting him sort of as like a martyr, I suppose. Like he died and ushered it. He was like a martyr against the East for Europe, and he ushered in a new era of like anti-papist individual states sort of stuff. Because everyone in Germany and everyone in Italy mourned his death so severely because he died at the hands of, papists and what have you, that they refused to allow the papists to impinge upon their sovereignty anymore.
That's a good way to go out, where your death means something and like fundamentally changes the landscape of your country.
Yep, quote directly about that. Now the robots who run our world also want to be loved and feared like Conradin, and are trembling because the people don't respect them. They too, the nations of our time, seek the return of youth, of a Conradin. It seemed to the peoples of that time a story of the promise of youth. So basically it's like he's talking about the resurgence of right-wing politics in Hungary and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Like those in power fear that because it's the return of like beauty, purity, stuff like that.
Standards.
Sovereignty, standards, non-neoliberalism. I was actually working with a student while I was tutoring, and their sociology professor put neoliberalism like far to the right, like center right is where neoliberalism was for him. And I was like, this guy's fucking woke, boys. Because for him, right means bad. So he's putting neoliberalism in the bad column.
So how left does he go? Like what?
Bernie Sanders is centrist.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders is all right, dude.
Dude, Corbyn is alt right, man.
Very.
Corbyn, not a fan of the banks. The parentheses, banks, parentheses.
It's pretty good.
Is there anything else in that chunk that you want to talk about at all, or?
No, I think my next one's in. Oh, and that one it's about 2 pages in the physical copy that you're talking about.
Oh, cool.
Was it 61 or 62? Oh, it's 61 when he talks about art. Yeah, that's my next thing is in 61.
Yeah, I just stuck out. It was this made me think of Tiger actually. He says that movies are the golden key to the minds of the many.
Yes.
Which is really cool. And then he talks about you fucking boy. He's just like, what Mel Gibson does is worth 1,000 books or activisms. Learn to make videos if you can, and you can start with video.
Here's the thing. Mel Gibson is the greatest Christian director to ever exist, right? His arc is super cool. I tweeted about this a while back. He went from actor, right? Super good at 80s, 90s movies, action actor. Did Braveheart. And then all that stuff in the early 2000s where he had those calls and there's that domestic violence case and whatnot. Like, that he kind of disappeared from the limelight a bit. Then he came back to Passion of the Christ, fantastic movie. Apocalypto, really fantastic movie. And then Hacksaw Ridge. And all of those are actually Christian films.
Yep.
And as a Scot, I can appreciate Braveheart.
Yeah, I mean, barring the historical inaccuracies, it's a good movie. Just from a purely filmmaking standpoint, It's good.
It actually, Braveheart embodies the sort of energy that he was talking about in the previous sections too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like strength of arms, you just go fucking kill a bunch of people. Also, all the people died. Doesn't matter. You did it for the boys.
And also, and he shows a bit of, this is the movie wasn't nuanced, Hacksaw Ridge, but he shows a nuanced hero in that. Where like, hey, I'm not gonna have a gun, but I'm gonna be equally as important as the guy with the gun. And he goes and saves 40 people.
Yep.
Doss, I think his name, Desmond Doss. And visual media, visual persuasion, visual propaganda is going to be what determines the hearts and minds of the populace, not
Yep,
votes.
it's hand in hand with social media, right? So
Everyone should pursue some facet of outside of writing. Everyone should pursue some other sort of facet of creativity, whether it be with music or art or movies. I think that should be encouraged a lot because that's another way to achieve greatness is by being a great patron of the arts.
Yes.
I am creative in the ways I can snap my back on the deadlift platform.
Just what you should do is, all right, guys, here's what you should do. You should get a little audio recorder, right? Put it near your back, and then purposely deadlift wrong, and then you'll get a snap, all right? And then do that about 6 times, and then you make a music mix with all your snappings.
You can send it into animation companies who need sound effects.
Yeah.
No longer able to walk in a wheelchair, I have achieved transcendence.
It's Evola style. Except that story is pretty crazy how he just didn't care about going into bomb shelters and he just walked around the streets as they were getting bombed, and that's how he ended up in a wheelchair.
It's Chad, dude.
When I was reading that in the intro of Revolt, I was blown away by
What country was Evola in?
Italy.
Italy, okay. Sounded like it, but
Yeah, so he was Middle Eastern.
Also, there's a great quote that I like that you could just tattoo on your forehead like 6ix9ine. Single-minded purity of purpose is true manliness. And it's
that is. I'm gonna be a virtuous rapper.
Woke rap. It already exists.
Woke rap, man.
Oh.
Pick up trash. Jesus Christ is my. All right.
Jesus Christ is like rice.
He's good. Banging gang signs. 61, I think it's really good because he gives. This is what I was talking about at the beginning, where it's a bunch of instances of historical. I'm gonna call them Chads because they're just chatty.
They are.
You know, you've got your boy Phoenician Hano. You got your boy Commodore Perry. Like Commodore Perry literally just pulled up Japan. He was like, "Okay, so I know you said you weren't gonna trade, but I'm gonna kill everybody, or you're gonna trade with us." And then they just traded with the United States. Phoenician Hanno. This is a great quote as well. He reached India. He found spices. He found monkey. He made the Zamorans submit with big guns. His investors made thousands of % return. You have all of these conquistadors, and I don't want it to be like white people fucking Hispanic women XD. It's like this idea of the individual that can go out into the world and make a foreign land his own. That happens a lot with this whole section.
Yes.
Do that. Alvarado is the avatar of our new age, and I predict this. Within 50 years, 100 Alvarados will bloom from the deep in the tropical bestiary of the world. They will sweep away the weakness of this world. So yeah.
I'm down. I think it's already happening politically, but those guys can definitely come in and help. I feel I need to move to the tropics to like meditate or whatever, like learn.
I think there's perennial wisdom in any biome, whether it be the Hyperborean or Hyperborean occupied north or the tropics down south. I feel like there's always an archetype that you can pull out of each nature setting that is wise. No matter where you go, it has to be untouched land, though.
And that's also a problem with urbanism. There's no archetype that comes out of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the Bugman. That's the manifestation in men that comes out of those. lands, if you could even say.
The Bugman leaves his house every morning with a fresh cup of coffee to go to the office.
I was,
What was the art section that you had in 61?
oh, that was 61 right in the beginning there when he's talking about Mel Gibson and just that people should create and that you shouldn't overlook art.
Oh yeah. This is, I don't think like Owen Cyclops does video content, but this made me think of Owen a little bit.
Yeah, I was thinking about buying the St. Augustine shirt of his today.
Oh, nice. That's my like phone's lock screen or whatever right now. Any other section? 62. Oh, this is a good one. Never mind. You must understand that the meddlesome little cretinoids who run the West always put a stop to great plans and great actions. Let me find where that was. I think it was like Margaret Thatcher's son was trying to overthrow the South African government, and then like the Feds stopped him from doing it. And BAP was just like, he should. Oh yeah. Even just a few years ago, Margaret Thatcher's son Mark was given a sentence in South Africa for an attempted coup on Equatorial Guinea. He was ratted out and caught at the airport. Yep. Gallant men who live under the sign of the lion are stopped before they can act. A different way is necessary. So I think what he's saying there is that, like, if you're a conquistador sort of person, you can't just, like we were saying earlier, you can't just pull up and kill people with spears. And that there's a different way that you have to do that.
Implying.
Also, just shout out to Neil Ellis. So it's the guy who was literally like one dude in a helicopter in Sierra Leone in the Sierra Leone Civil War, just cruising around saving people, just shooting up a bunch of people all by himself for like 5 years.
Makes me really want to buy my own helicopter. My own Huey with M60s on the side.
If you cop,
blast Fortunate Son, fly around the Midwest.
I could get behind that.
Just find a patch of land, take it, put a flag down.
You're like, this is mine.
It ain't me. I'm the Science.
If we can make it economically viable in some sort of way, we wouldn't have to raise the money ourselves. We just get capital venturists to give us some money for that.
Yeah, we'll just find some Chad venture capitalists and be like, hey, we're going to go out to the middle of the woods. Do you want to give us a bunch of money to do that? And then he'll be like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
He's like, why? Why? What will I get from this? It's badass. Why else would we do it?
What do I make from it? You can get some corn that we'll farm. Ah, excellent.
That's the other thing is with how when society is so based around the economy, and when we were talking about that earlier, is that not everything has to be some economically viable plan. Technically, it may save on hospital bills to go to the gym a bunch, but there's more meaning to pursuing physical greatness than trying to make it economically viable. There's more things in life than money.
Thing is, in today's age, you can do both. With like, I know a lot of people don't like it, but like all the online income people, you know, like the drop shipping and whatnot, like you could do that and like spend your days lifting and like adventuring and whatnot. So I think that's pretty cool.
There's a lot of ways to make money now.
But I'm doing none of them.
I'm gonna be a teacher.
Fuck you. Also, there's a little bit of happiness at the end here. The coming age of barbarism will not be owned, as so many of you urban cucks fear, by the gangbangers and the unwashed hordes of the teeming cesspools of the world, but by clean-cut middle-class and working-class vets, men of military experience who know something about how to shoot and how to organize. The fools who think oligarchs will be able to control these men for very long should look to the fortunes of the Sforzas and many others, and remember that money is no match for force of arms combined with charm. Money is no match for force of arms combined with charm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. I just love that quote.
That's how Trump won. It was his charm, not Hillary's money.
Exactly. It wasn't just like, it still like blows my mind the fundraising difference between the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaign.
Well, I mean, Trump played it so well. Every day he'd create a shitstorm that the media had to talk about 24/7, and she was just overlooked. It was all about Trump the entire time.
People were like, "He's throwing the elections," and I'm like, "That's all part of the plan."
That's what he wants you to think.
I was like
Shut
the
up.
only person that was like, "He's gonna win. You might not like it, but it's gonna happen, guys." And then they're like, "Oh no, you're just an idiot." And then it happened. And then everyone's pissed at me. And I'm like, "Hey, what do I do? Can't even vote yet, people."
That was just facts.
Shout out to Hillary Clinton for going to Hamilton, the Broadway musical, more times than she went to Wisconsin, the state. Big ups.
Shout out to Hillary Clinton. Good job.
Shout out to Hillary Clinton, gang. Dude, NVNE is fucking telling me to get out of the Midwest. I will never leave the Midwest.
Oh, you're Midwest.
I'm
thought
Midwest.
so. Okay.
Yeah. Michigan, Mitten Gang, 100%. If anyone wants to dox me and track me down for one-on-one combat, let's go.
You know what? Michigan is the one Midwest state where I'm like, that's pretty cool.
It's awesome, man. Girlfriend and I are going camping in the Upper Peninsula in October.
Oh, fun.
I'm super hyped. It's gonna be like just when all the trees are changing and stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Doxing should be met with hand-to-hand combat.
Oh yeah, the little like skinny fat bugman journalist like, "Hey, I got him." You just challenge him to a one-on-one powder pistol duel.
We could actually put laws into place for that, where the doxer has to engage in combat with the doxee, and if not, in return, ruin that person's life.
Nobody would get doxed. Nobody would get doxed anymore.
Only the brave would dox.
Only Chads would dox each other.
That's how they engage in fights in modern times. It's just a bunch of Twitter anon just doxing each other so they can fight.
See, here's a problem too. I just thought of like, why is that not allowed? Right? Like, why is that not?
Bullying?
Yeah, like why is that not a part of? No, like our doxing part. Like, why do we call that uncivilized? That's
I was actually just thinking about that. Where it's like, how is doxing legal?
yeah.
Right? Like, how on earth is that legal? Twitter's a private company.
But
Do whatever you want.
only giant social media monopolies are private companies. Everything else needs to be government owned.
No, this is the way you do it, right? You create an alternate identity that's a journalist, and then you dox other journalists and kill them because the journalists don't accept the challenge. They're like, "Oh, it's not a limp-wristed fuck," right? And then you just surprise them and you just mog them. And you're just like 220 pounds, ripped and cut. You don't even shoot the pistol, you just throw it at their head.
Just
FYI, YouTube, we do not advocate the killing of journalists. Or
We would only do
media
this in our
people.
Minecraft server,
Yes,
by the way.
This is in our Minecraft server. This is in our Fortnite server.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this is in the Fortnite.
What about IRL Fortnite? Has anybody thought of that?
Oh yeah. I'm
Parachute
surprised that
down.
there's not a
Except
thing.
when you forget you can't respawn.
I mean, but
Okay.
if you win,
I guess it depends on your point of view on that.
Why is there not like an airsoft Fortnite thing?
okay, here's the thing. I used to airsoft, and a lot of people didn't like their guns being touched by others, which I kind of get. You buy a $400 gun, you put a lot of time into it, and some like 12-year-old shit kid like comes and grabs it, like fucking breaks the gears because he's spamming the full auto. I get that, but why can't everyone just donate some like
Shitty guns.
Yeah, like your $120 M4s that they're okay, but they don't nothing to write home about. Just put a bunch of those in some buildings and then just like run around.
Here's what we do. We grab kids that are wasting their days away on Fortnite. We put them in a Huey, push them off, give them an M16, and you actually fight for your life. One person remains, and that's how we breed the strong from the weak.
Nice.
You grab a group of people who, in general, will be weak, and you only allow one strong person to exist out of all of them. That's the plan.
Better than the current system. Will your kids play Fortnite, both of you guys? Will your kids have access to video games?
I'm a kid. I would really hold off on letting them have like stuff like a phone. People are having, you see kids in because my mom's a teacher, and in second grade, these kids have iPhones, and that's just completely out of line.
Yeah.
I
They
definitely
go
wouldn't
onto
want that for a
Snapchat
kid.
and they go onto the news part of Snapchat and be like, "This is how to get birth control, even if your parents don't know you're fucking." It's just
It's like you're in second grade. You don't need that.
I would my
'Cause
mom did a thing that's like she limited the amount of time that I had access to a screen, whatever that screen may be, to like an hour or two a day, and I thought that was a
Ah,
good play.
that's
just
pretty okay.
encourage your kids to live like normal lives, like spend
Yeah, well, the new normal is
time
going to be
with
that,
people in person.
Um,
I think I said this last episode. There's gonna be like two strata of people. One who like, you know, use their brain and think like maybe all this hyper localized technology isn't good, and then they just like they manage their kids, help them grow properly, and then there's ones like here's YouTube on autoplay, see ya, and like they're just gonna be two whole.
Yeah, parents aren't parenting anymore. They're just because they're on their phones.
Oh yeah, it's really weird. Like I go out and there's like families of 5, and like the baby's just chilling in like the rock and like the fucking thing that you carry babies in or whatever, and then the
Yeah.
other 2 kids are on their phones and both the parents are on their phones. They're just like standing there for like 10 minutes. And I
Yeah.
hate malls so much, dude. I'm not going back to the mall anytime.
How'd you get dragged to the mall?
I had to go to buy a suit.
Oh,
Yeah.
powerful.
As much as people hate on him, Varg is actually living the life that everyone here wants
Yep.
to live. He's out. He's developed permaculture in his land. He's living off the land. He has a bunch of kids, and he's raising them a noble way. I mean, naming them after like Norse gods is kind of weird, but
That's
I think
dope.
I think
That's
he has a
dope.
kid named Bjorn, which is
That's
like
awesome.
bear or something.
That's
But
a sick
anyway,
name.
like as much as like as LARPy and crazy as Varg is, he actually lives the life that everyone here wants to live.
Yeah, you can't shit
Just
on
did
Varg.
it. While everyone else is talking about it, he did it.
Isn't he in a metal band?
Yeah, that's how he started. He was in Burzum, which was a black metal band, and it was a
Oh.
one-man band. And he was doing some project with a another guitarist, and that's the guy who he ended up killing, Euronymous.
Wait,
Then
Ford killed someone? Hold up.
yeah,
3
oh
years
yeah, that's
later,
the
he
whole.
was.
He was in Norwegian, a black metal band, and then he ended up killing someone because he thought that guy was trying to kill him. Went to Norwegian jail for 21 years. I think escaped at some point, and then moved to France to marry and have kids with his current wife.
I was not familiar with this at all, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So you can. That's
Norwegian black metal. The second wave of black metal has a lot of insane people, and the history is pretty crazy.
All right. Do we have any other comments on the Bat book?
Oh, the end. But we had talked about it earlier. Where Teddy Roosevelt went out to the Amazon and died.
Yeah, I'm just gonna read it's a little paragraph, so I'll just
Yeah.
read the whole thing for viewers. When Theodore Roosevelt was, I think, close to 70 years old, he went on expedition to Amazon, then mostly still unexplored. He called it one last chance to be a boy. This expedition led to his death, and it was a good death. He followed in footsteps of men like Lope de Aguilar, and never lost the yearning in his heart for El Dorado. I also think that El Dorado can be like an idea or concept that doesn't have to be real as well. Like that which you are pursuing in your noble adventure doesn't have to necessarily be real to make the adventure noble. Yee.
I would agree.
Yee.
Yee. Back a fucking lip, gamers. All right, I'm gonna hit up the group chat and we'll open it to YouTube chat as well for questions. So if anybody has any questions, inquiries, thoughts, concerns, this is where we get to interact with our audience.
And if you
Wait,
need an
wait, hold on.
insight into the Gen Z lifestyle,
Oh yeah,
I'm the
this man's
guest
a
for
high
that.
schooler.
Hey, Owen.
What?
Owen's we weren't. You guys missed it. Actually, he asked what our favorite monarchs were.
Oh yeah, Owen asked what our favorite monarchs were. I had to
Oh,
think of it a little
I
bit.
don't know enough about monarch history. That's a good one though.
Oh,
favorite one,
Frederick the
Dustin?
Great. I'm gonna go Frederick the Great because he's Prussia. And he had a good military history and stuff like that.
You literally read my mind, bro.
Nice.
Yeah. Or Louis the 14th. Him or Louis
Louis
the
the
14th.
14th was Chad too.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know much about any monarchs, but Louis the 14th was like the one I remember from studying.
Had built Versailles, like that alone. There you go.
Yeah, exactly right.
Like Louis the 14th's politics and like his architecture endeavors. That's very cool. And then like Frederick the Great's military, in like
yeah.
his handbook for the military. If you read that, you're like, damn, all of this is actually applicable.
Yep.
Like all this is timeless, good, archetypal information how to run a military.
It's like
Or a
pseudo
business.
art of war stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, he's great.
I mean, if you have as many kids as Louis 14th had, you're doing something right. You can't just have, what was it, like 17 kids without doing something right in life.
Problem is, I assume he wasn't a good father because the next two kings were just utterly fucking retarded.
Inbreeding catches up to you every once in a while, I think. Can't fight it, right?
Wasn't
Eventually,
there was some guy in Canada who got in trouble for polygamy and he had something like 100 kids. That's called modern day conquistador mindset.
Really though.
It's through genetic warfare by spreading yourself as much as possible.
You're just power cloning at that point.
But yeah, when people talk about, it's only bugmen that talk about wanting to copy people like genetically through 3D printers. It's because actual Chads can do it in real life by having kids with a real woman. They don't need to clone humans.
Ooh.
All because you don't lift weights. You want transhumanism.
Yukio Mishima asks, "What are the 3 things you have each done to improve your life the most, thought or deed?"
Okay.
I'll go first, probably. So, first one is probably stop staying up until like 3 to 3:30 a.m. Second one is stopping drinking a bunch and like smoking weed because that's just such a waste of time and it made me feel like shit. Third one is lifting weights. Pretty easy, I think.
All right. I would say all of those. Just not doing any hard drugs, like quitting any bad addictions that you have. If you are at work, if you do have work or in school, focus a bunch of your time into that. Because if you're not going to do anything with your free time, you might as well put effort into something that matters to you in the moment. Go to the gym and have some sort of other physical activities outside of the gym that you look forward to, such as martial arts. That's highly recommended. Going on hikes too, I really enjoy doing, and having a positive outlook on life, because I don't know about for you guys, but when you have a really negative and cynical outlook on life, it just destroys yourself. When you have the black pill view on everything, it's impossible to live a healthy life that way. So always keep your head up and think that things can and will get better if you put the time and effort into it.
Yep.
Don't let the small things bug you. Be a stoic.
So I would say for one, definitely lifting weights. That's huge. That's like the kind of the cornerstone of everything, right? If you lift weights, everything else kind of comes. If you lift weights with purpose, consistency, and a goal, everything else kind of comes from that.
Yeah, don't just go into the gym and fuck around.
Yeah. Go there, like play the music just to ignore the Katy Perry. Like don't go in there to listen to music. Obviously, go in there to lift and get stronger. Second thing I would say, I would say definitely starting my own video production business, because that gave me, so after high school I didn't really have a purpose, right? I was like, well, I'm done going to my government issued school, right? What do I do now? And then now, like, I have my business. I'm doing online e-business stuff. Like I'm growing a Twitter account for a purpose, not just to like talk to people and meme around. I'm trying to like get a network, make money, do powerful things with that. So that definitely gave me a purpose in life. And then my third thing, I would say replacing 8 to 10 hours of video games a day with reading. I don't read 8 to 10 hours a day, but all that time is now spent either into business or all the other things I have to do. But now, like, even just reading an hour a day is infinitely beyond comprehension, way more valuable than all those video game hours put together.
Yeah.
And reading really
hurts.
like there's all this talk about taking action, just doing stuff. Like reading is so important, and not just reading like business books or self-improvement books. Like after a while, those get repetitive and whatever. Like all I read was Gorilla Mindset, and that was basically it. I know a lot of people don't like Mike Cernovich, but I mean that book is gold for me at least. And then reading Neil Postman, reading Goethe, reading we're doing Goethe soon. Reading Plato, reading Walden, all this stuff. You're like, wow, this is deep. I can reread these. Like, it's quiet. It's it's a great contrast to screaming and deadlifting. Right? You get home, and you read, and you feel you get smarter. You can have an internal conversation with yourself, which is awesome.
Inner monologue.
Yeah. I call it an internal conversation because I ask myself questions and then new thoughts come. It's not just like me speaking and me knowing everything.
You have to play devil's advocate for yourself in order to like have true knowledge.
And it's just, I would say that in conclusion, lifting weights, fucking starting my own business, and replacing video games with books, not the other way around. Don't do that.
Another thing is try to force yourself, and this is just with anything, force yourself that makes you uncomfortable in a good way.
Yes.
Because if every day you're just doing day-to-day stuff and you're never out of your comfort zone, and no matter what facet of life it is, you're gonna breed complacency and you're just gonna be a very average, unsuccessful, boring person.
Yeah.
And
keep going.
I was gonna say another thing is when we're talking about locker room talk and having fun with the boys, that's another thing I emphasize for guys a lot is to be social within just a group of guys. Like have a group of guys that can always help you with anything that you need, and have a support system that is outside of a girlfriend or family. And the other thing is for those who that feel when no GF post, the reason why you don't have a GF is because you post that shit. Women can they sense that on someone.
Women smell fear
when they know you want like you just don't want a girlfriend, and that's how you get a girlfriend. Strive for something beyond women and you will get women.
No, you know how you get a girlfriend? That's how you get a girlfriend. It's a numbers game, right? 3 out of every 100 women you like will go on a date with you. Okay, so already know your chance. The odds are against you. So get that out of your mind that you're going to get one the first time. And if you don't get her immediately, then you're fucking garbage and whatnot. No, what you do is you stop masturbating. That's step one.
Oh yes, we should have put that in the 3.
Because pheromones, they can smell the pheromones, right? And you approach girls every day. Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you have your standards, right? You don't just go up to like the little gremlin and be like, "Date me," right? You see a girl you like, you get out of your comfort zone, you go talk to her, right? And it's all about just talking to women. It's not about getting the goal of like, I'm going to take her on a date. It's I'm going to talk to this girl, and at the end of the conversation, I'm going to ask for her number and hopefully go on a date. That's how you do it, and you just do that a bunch of times, and hopefully when you're lifting weights along with that, so you actually physically look good.
At a certain point, you just don't even get nervous about it anymore. Even something as small as that, where for a lot of people, you can start off that being a really nerve-wracking task. Like for me now, that's just nothing. You can come a long ways in anything in life like that, where such a task that seemed so impossible for you to complete in the past is just now everyday business. And that's how you become great.
Every day, build at something. Every day. Whether that's your business, maybe that's reading a book, doing some writing, making some art, getting a relationship better, approaching a girl. Just do something every single day.
Keep a log of what you get done each day, where
victory log.
Something as small as only reading 20 pages of a book and that's all you did. You still need to keep a log because every day you should be doing more than the past day. Obviously there's exceptions. Like this past week I've actually been up till 2 a.m. because I would have school, work, and then school, work, but you should still be using your free time effectively.
Yes.
What little you have of it.
Doesn't, do you have anything to add?
I actually didn't mention the masturbation thing because it should be like without mention at this point.
Yeah.
But like, by the way, don't watch porn, man. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's bad.
Every single time you do that, like literally the Zionist occupational government wins. Like it's so bad. It's so fucking bad. Like do any degree of research about it, any degree at all, and you'll come to the same conclusion as everyone else has.
That's another thing about empiricism is you don't need some sort of fact to tell you why like watching porn's bad, because a lot of it is just it's metaphysical. You'll understand why it's bad once you do it and you understand the effects that it has on you. You don't need some lab coat to tell you that jacking off is bad. Who cares that if you do it 3 times a day for a month you have like a 1% less likely chance of prostate cancer? That's no reason to be a degenerate. Don't buy into the pro masturbation studies. That's my rant.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah,
here's the thing: if you don't trust all science, like if you're like one of us, you're a lifting bro, and you don't trust all established knowledge, but then you're like, oh, the studies say masturbating isn't too bad. Then you're just being a goofball.
Yeah.
Don't be goofball. Come on.
Don't be a goofball. Save the nut for a woman.
Also, we got to move to the next question. I think this will be our last question because we're getting towards the time when I have some work to do.
All right.
Okay.
There's a South Africa situation. So what they meant by that question is like, so South Africa land reclamation, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'll start. I think we'll all be on the same page here too. Is like, oh look, you have a bunch of people that are like, it's land reclamation. Go back to Mao. Go back to the Cultural Revolution. Land reclamation and land redistribution is almost always a prerequisite to genocide. It's
Yeah,
not good.
exactly.
When Trump is like, this is a genocide, then it is. Then people can like dick around with the UN definition of genocide. But when you have white people being attacked in public for no reason other than their skin color, that's bad.
Yeah, if black people in South Africa take land away from rights, what do you think the reaction will be in a very effective multicultural society like in America? What do you think will happen to when whites want land back? What will happen then? Because you just open up a can of worms. Because if you say, well, blacks in Africa are taking lands from whites, guess what might happen in America? You'll have things that you do not want to happen. People use it to justify not so good things. Let's just say that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's I honestly don't have, I haven't read into it, so I don't have much to add in terms of solutions. But I mean, if you look who's calling it a conspiracy theory and like it's not happening, it's all the journalists you know and hate. So obviously, just by process of elimination, you can tell it's true. I don't know what to do about it.
The long story short is you don't want to be a white farmer in South Africa today.
Yeah.
No.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you to North Pole. Thank you to Tiger for coming on as well.
It was fun.
Oh, sweet. Glad to hear it. Sorry that we got on the road a little late this time. We had some technical issues. Happens to the best of us.
Also known as me fucking having my computer die and then not being able to find that book and then just
and me not being able to read.
Yeah.
He's
all right. Well, thanks again for coming out. We'll probably be on same time next week, but again, I'll announce it on Twitter. So just follow me, and you'll probably figure out when that is. All right. Best wishes to everybody. Good night.
See you.